Tapu, assalamu alaikum, namaste, haru nefer. This is Qesankh Maya Keparu with another exciting video for you. And in this video, we're going to talk about exposing the Hollywood secrets and the music industry secrets as well. But before I do that, I'd like you to hit the like button on this video. If this is your first time to my channel, welcome. Hit the subscribe button so I get notifications on, so you get notifications on when I go live and when I upload recorded videos. If you're looking to learn more about my spiritual teachings, you can become a Patreon supporter for as little as $1, $5, $20 per month, and you can cancel at any time. You get exclusive access to instructional videos on the esoteric, videos that will take you deeper down the rabbit hole, videos that will show you how to contact the ancestors, how to summon spirits, how to create a magical amulet, how to do self-hypnosis, how to work with the oracles, divination. And if you are an Asir level supporter, all of your oracle readings are free. So become a Patreon supporter today. Last but not least, share this video with family and friends so we can get the revolution started. So, Haroon Nefer, let's go into this really deep subject of exposing Hollywood and the music industry's secrets. Now, this is a video I was kind of reluctant to making because you just never know how individuals will react to it. And I'm going to just say this straight up, that it's not my intent to basically insult or demean any one group. I'm just laying out the foundation or lay the land to let you know what to expect. And many people who get into entertainment industry, the music industries, don't know what to expect. And I made a career out of this, really just helping coach individuals who are looking to break in, what they need to do to arm themselves and what they're going to encounter. And often what I find is people are starry-eyed. They believe everything the media puts out there without question, and they don't understand that the media is really, or Hollywood, the music industry, is really about smoke and mirrors. It's all about misdirection. It's all about programming. It's all about agendas. So a lot of times what you may see and you think is authentic and organic is not really so. It's really constructed to steer you in a specific direction, which is off a cliff, usually like in the tarot deck, the fool. The fool has to be careful in his journey of where he's stepping, or else he'll step off the cliff. And that's when you are, that's who you are if you're looking to get into the music and Hollywood entertainment industry. You have to be very careful and take precise steps, as in the I Ching 64th hexagram, where the sly fox crosses the frozen river, and he has to be careful of each step so he doesn't get his tail wet. Too many of us proceed with gusto, enthusiasm, and we are, in a sense, what the ancient Kemetic people said was Haru the blind, because there is an aspect of Haru who does not see. So it's very important that you are aware of and looking out for the dangers that lie ahead. And the real danger that lies in your first step, as I always tell individuals, is the belief that everything you see is as Hollywood portrays it. In other words, Hollywood has this thing about making it seem like if you're talented, you'll break in, that eventually if you work hard, you'll make it in the industry, and if you're talented, you have a long lifespan, a long career. And that's simply not so. What Hollywood and the music industry fails to tell you is that many people at the top echelon were selected and actually went through an initiation ceremonial process to get to that top level. What we have to understand is that there was a, well, it wasn't a recent study done, but there was a study done that talked about how African Americans or ADOS are big consumers. And what we focus on a lot is mainstream media, that we go to movies a lot, we listen to music a lot, and this is a coping mechanism or escapism from racism, which is perfectly understandable given the situation when you see that you have a segment of the society, 14%, that is oppressed. And as the victims of this oppression, they look for escapism, and the music and entertainment industry are one ways of going about that. But consequently, what you have is you have that segment of society believing everything that it's shown and told as factual when it's not true. and not only that, they consume so much is that they tend to emulate what they see in mainstream media. And that's the danger. You have young black men walking around thinking they're either thugs or are going to be rappers, one day, famous rappers, and the women walk around with blonde hair, trying to put on the veneer of white female European beauty. So all of these things have a profound impact upon this oppressed group. And no one should look at them and see what they're doing as solely their fault. In fact, the industry studies the psychology of these groups so you can specifically target them. But there comes a point where you have to grow up eventually. I was walking down the street and I saw a lot of African-American men walking around in short pants, a little ball cap and a t-shirt. And I just couldn't stop thinking how they look like boys, little boys. And this is the fashion that has been created by Madison Avenue, that's been created by mainstream media to keep them in an infantile state, to keep them in arrested development, so they never dress appropriately like men. And that's a problem. That's a big, big problem. And it is so pervasive and systematic to where they're not even conscious and aware of the fact that their fashion, the clothes that they wear, the sneakers that they wear, what they're doing is emulating young boys, because in white supremacist ideology, the idea of a black man actually being a man is a contradiction, or it's not something that they accept. So you're always to them referred to as a boy. Hey, boy. And consequently, what you do is you have the masses of these, well, not the masses, but a great majority of these men emulate that and mirror that back and take on the fashion of a boy. And because mainstream media typically legitimizes it. And one thing mainstream media will do is it will cater to the lowest common denominator. So it won't cater to the intelligentsia, or you won't see those educated black men and women portrayed in mainstream media, going to college, going to school, educating themselves as doctors and dentists. But more so, what you're going to see is an emulation of sports and music in those programs. I want you to understand that a lot of the filmmakers and a lot of the musicians did not get to where they are right now because they were talented and they worked hard and they never gave up. They got to where they are is because they were allowed to. They were vetted by the system itself and given the accolades and pumped out through mainstream media so they could climb the ladder. Hollywood specifically picks individuals like Lee Daniels, to get to where they are. Tyler Perry, to get to where they are. Because they facilitate the agenda. And that agenda is to vilify, demonize black people. So the notion that you're going to get into the industry and do the best job you can, and that the industry is going to embrace you, is what we call it the I Ching, the fourth hexagram, the fool in a way, or the innocent, youthful folly. You're not hip to the game. So you think that you can just emulate what Ice Cube, Ice-T, or whatever has done by selling your tracks out of your car, and then sell 1 million of them and then break into the industry. Not realizing that they broke into the industry at a specific time and were allowed to get in there. Not realizing that gangster rap facilitates the image of a dangerous black man, which legitimizes police shooting them down. You play into their hands. That was the whole idea of gangster rap, was to paint in mainstream media the black men as a threat to legitimize the police taking certain measures. But now all of these young individuals who are striving to get out of poverty, who are striving to get out of the crack epidemic, just saw a way of getting out and wanted to just make it or get rich or die trying. Hollywood does not do anything by accident. The music industry doesn't do anything by accident. Let's take case in point, Kylie Jenner, formerly Bruce Jenner. If you think that Bruce Jenner just suddenly decided that he identified as a woman or transgender, then you're wrong. You see, many of these individuals sit down with the ruling elite, the oligarchy, and they make deals with them. The oligarchy would approach them. And now understand, I'm talking about a hierarchy that goes above Hollywood and goes above the music industry, which is the hidden hand, which is the wizard behind the curtain that influences both Hollywood and the music industry and dictates to them what needs to be done. So Bruce will sit down with the oligarchy and say, listen, we can make you famous, world famous. We can make your daughters, your family famous. But we need to push this agenda. Will you say you identify as transgender because we're pushing a transgender agenda? And of course, looking for money and fame and riches. He goes along with it, identifies now as Kylie Jenner. And what happens? His daughters take off, TV shows take off. Millions and millions of dollars are thrown his way. He becomes she becomes the woman of the year. It's all a facade. It's all a plan. Just like Black Lives Matter. The facade of, oh, we're protesting for black men, and they absolutely do nothing for black men, but take $90 million of what they made last year and funnel that money into transgender organizations. Do you see the game? Charlize Theron from South Africa comes here and is propelled to stardom in movies. Atomic Blonde, acting opposite of Will Smith. Mad Max. She gets these great opportunities. Why? Because she can go along and adopt a young boy and then decide that she wants to put him in a dress and say, it's a girl. Well, why didn't you just adopt a girl then if you wanted a girl? Why would you adopt a boy and put the boy in a dress? Because it fits the oligarchy's agenda. See, they had a talk with her. They said, listen, if you adopt this child and put this child in a dress, we'll give you opportunities. We'll give you fame and fortune. Many people don't realize there's a dark and sinister hand in Hollywood that's calling the shots. Do you think that every studio suddenly decides to make films where the woman now is the hero? Look at Ghostbusters. Look at the Terminator movie. Look at Coming to America, too. All of a sudden, it's all about the woman now. And all of these studios are doing it. It just happenstance, coincidence that they all decide to do it? No, they're taking the directives from a higher source so they can emasculate men. Set the stage for a domino effect, a takeover, where men will fall across the planet. There is no way that films like Star Wars, Ghostbusters, Terminator, all these films suddenly come along and devalue the man and elevate the woman. That defies the odds. That means that there is an agenda that they're all following. Someone's calling the shots from behind the scenes. Bill Cosby's son was taken out, and now Bill Cosby's next. This is not just about Bill Cosby squeezing some girl's tit. There's something more behind that, you see. He refused to play the game. He refused to go along with the agenda. Stop thinking that all you need to do is have talent and you'll be able to break into the industry and have a successful career. No, the industry selects individuals. And puts them up there, puts them out there on the global level. We talk about the casting couch, how the Me Too movement and women are taken advantage of. Yes, that's true and that's wrong. Let me say that. But what they don't talk about is how gay directors, gay producers sexually assault straight men. And if these men don't play ball, they don't get the parts in the movies. This is rampant in Hollywood. If you're a man and you're an actor, you're liable to meet with a gay producer or gay director who will say, I will advance your career if you sleep with me, or you come to my orgy party in Hollywood. And yes, those things exist. Eyes Wide Shut, made by Stanley Kubrick, starring Tom Cruise, was the industry telling on itself about the rituals that they have, about the underworld. So if we're going to talk about casting couch, Me Too movement, we got to look at what males are subjected to as well in the industry. We often talk about women being raped. We don't talk about prison rape, male rape. I want you to open your eyes as to what's going on so you don't jump in to the smoke and mirrors and think it's all good. It's not. It's not. Many screenwriters in Hollywood have to change their script to accommodate certain agendas. The military has a big influence on films. Look at the 80s and the 90s, the Rambos, the Schwarzenegger, the war films were all done, sanctioned by the military to further enlistment, to further the act of invasion and the takeover of democratically elected leaders, and the media manipulating you and making you think that they're dictators. You may have enjoyed those films. I enjoyed them too. But they just weren't about action. There was a clear agenda: patriotism, military enlistment, more money to be funneled into defense budgets. But we play right into it. We just think it's entertainment. I spoke early on about how the movie The Black Panther, the portrayal of T'Challa was an emasculated male, and people, especially African Americans, like, oh, you're crazy, you're stupid. I'm like, no, I'm not. I said their goal is to get rid of him eventually. And now what do we have happening now? We see very clearly that he's being replaced by his sister. But he wasn't the character that we wanted in the first place, because you see, Black Panther, T'Challa, was supposed to be a genius. He was supposed to be a genius, even more superior than Tony Stark. But what do we get? His sister was the tech wizard when he was supposed to be. But this is done to condition and program the masses of society to hate men, emasculate men. Oh, that's it. Let me address that really quick. What you just said. Real quickly there, in my university, government funded millions in the art department of gaming to develop simulations for the military interactions overseas, example, Afghanistan. So in the same way, in the video game industry, many young men had noticed that when they are playing the games, when the excitement start to happen, the shooting and things of that nature, it would put them in a sort of a trance. And they noticed that there were symbols in the games. And while they were in trance, those symbols were communicating to them certain things. So I want you to understand what's going on and how deep this thing goes. And that is a real big way of mind control, is through the process of trance. But I digress. You see, it first starts with your corporations and your think tank institutions like Tavistock Rockefeller Foundation that puts together these studies on human behavior and issues those studies. And those studies then find their way to the ruling elite, which then puts out the directive to the music industry in Hollywood on what's going to be popular. Let me say that again, on what's going to be popular. You don't decide what's popular. You don't decide who's going to be a star or not. You don't decide who's going to be the next top magician. I said it right. Musician. They do. Because they have the money to blanket the airwaves, blanket the media outlets with these individuals. You think they've been plucked from obscurity, but they haven't. People ask, well, why are they casting a lot of English actors in black films? Well, if you understand that the English actors, if you look at, for example, Star Wars, do your research on the leading actress in Star Wars and you find out that she comes from an occult school. Rey. And if she's coming from an occult school, that tells you that she was specifically selected for that role, that she just didn't walk in and audition. Do the research, you'll see it. Occult background. Many of these things are all tied together. When you study certain other things like Werner von Braun, Aleister Crowley, L. Ron Hubbard, they're all tied together. Margaret Sanger, all tied together. And this brings me to things like your Black Lives Movement, your LGBTQ, your feminist movement. All of these things are not organic. They're constructed. They're organizations that have been put together by rich so-called philanthropists who have ties to the ruling elite, the oligarchy. These organizations have been funded. They're not grassroots. And then these organizations find their way into the universities where the subject matters are then taught and disseminated to the young and into Hollywood. It's all one big ecosystem. All one hand washes the other. There's no separation. They're all working together to kind of frame a narrative, frame your perspective on life. You're not LGBTQ, you're not BLM, you're not African American, you are consciousness. You are the divine spirit of God. You're not gay, straight, this, that. You are immaterial. You have always been and always will be. You are God, man, God, woman. It pains me to see these young brothers and sisters out there emulating hip hop rap culture, when it was constructed, hip hop rap culture was constructed so that it could become the dominant form of music on the planet. Well, why did they want it to be the dominant form of music? Why did they put rap tracks in every movie, even where movies where black people weren't in them? Because if they could create hip hop as the dominant music globally, then they can infiltrate it and put within it their agenda, their ideology. Now they could control. Now they could control you. Now they can control you because you have now drank the Kool-Aid. I'm seeing people walking around who call themselves conscious, talking about hip hop is a way of life. You fool! You have allowed them to create an ideology, and you have taken that ideology as a way of life into this. Instead of saying, I am consciousness, I follow a spiritual way of life, but instead of doing that, you say hip hop goes across color lines, gender. Of course it does, because that's what they wanted it to do. And now when they virtually, it started out almost innocuous, and now it's moved to a point of where they feel they can manipulate it and control it, which was their agenda all along. And now what do you find in hip hop? The emasculation of males, the indoctrination of males, black men as gay or feminine or hostile. First it was hostile, dangerous because they were thugs. Now the attempt is to and of course, when I'm getting into the subject, the feed now is starting to have a problem. Of course, makes sense. The feed now has a problem. I talk about anything else, the feed doesn't have a problem, and now I get on to this. So these idiots who talk about hip hop as a way of life are playing into their hand. It's playing into their hand. They want you to accept it as a way of life. Therefore, they can manipulate you. Hip hop is a corporate child constructed for the purposes of emasculating males, consumerism, manipulating the masses of people on the planet, indoctrinating you into Satanism and materialism. Look what it's morphed into. Mumble rap. Rappers wearing dresses now, which is an initiation process to get to higher levels in the entertainment industry. What I don't like is to see the people walk off a cliff, to go along with this willingly. Because and the reason why it works and it's so effective, because you have a lot of people out there who are greedy, who are self-centered, who are egotistical. And that's why they fall susceptible to this plan, this agenda. L. Ron Hubbard said the best way to make money is to create a religion, a belief system. That's what hip hop has become. But instead of just making money, they now know how to manipulate the minds of the youth. It's ridiculous to have 40-year-old men, 50-year-old men out here talking about hip hop. Who's the latest rapper? Jay-Z. That is a sign of immaturity. Talking about Jordans, that's a sign of immaturity. You shouldn't be talking. You should be talking about economics, building, global politics. I could care less who's the latest hip hop rapper and what they're doing. It's all manufactured. It's not real. Let us go to Prince and Michael Jackson, two of the top pop stars out there, both of which were selected, crafted, and manufactured by the ruling elite. The Jackson Five did not win the talent contest as you so were told. They were selected. Michael Jackson was groomed and selected for stardom. A reporter got on TV and he said, I could not find one woman Michael Jackson slept with. That was a powerful statement. Let me say that again. He said, I could not find one woman that Michael Jackson slept with. I want you to understand this. When you are the top pop star of the world, the fear that the majority of men, white men, are going to have is that your little girl, your white Becky, is going to go to these concerts and start sleeping with a Michael Jackson or a Prince. If you go back to the 60s and the 50s, where you would have the Motown and you would have these artists come out to be black artists, the threat of black male masculinity was so strong that they had these songs that white women were falling over black men. Because music appeals to the sexual vibration and energy within you. And women are not race loyal. Women are wired to not stay with just one race. And the ruling elite knew this. So when these black singers would come out, they had to put the face of a white person on the album cover in order for it to be acceptable to their fathers, their white fathers, these young women. So consequently, you'll see these album covers with all these white guys, but really the singers were the black guys. So Michael Jackson had to be crafted to be kind of like, what is it, asexual or feminine in a way. They had to sit Michael Jackson down and say, listen, we can't have you be masculine. We need you to be metrosexual, asexual, whatever you want to call it, or leaning in the other direction. Because if you're straight up masculine, you're not going to sell albums, because these white men aren't going to want their little daughters or their girls to go to your concerts. So let's craft you as this Peter Pan boy, not interested in girls, but the boy who never grew up. And you'll play with kids and you have no interest in sex. So let's write that narrative and you'll take on that persona. And you'll do this if you want to get to the top pop star. And he said yes. And the same thing with Prince, who in my opinion, though he could play all these instruments, his music wasn't that great. But they said to him, we will elevate you to the top. But you got to play both sides of the fence. You got to seem metrosexual. We don't want you to appeal to white women. We don't want their fathers thinking you could sleep with them. So play a little both sides, like you're into men and women. But more so men, maybe. Dress feminine. Michael Jackson walks around screaming like a little girl sometimes. Hee, hee, Shimon. You don't find that. That's not a threat. As if you would have a voice, a deep voice, like, hey, baby, what's going on? Shimon. You don't want that. We don't want that. So they craft these images of these pop stars and they make them famous. But you think these pop stars were working, and dancing, and practicing their routine and learning the instruments and really working hard to get to where they were. No, they were selected. Look at your Madonna. Look at your Cardi B. Look at your Nicki Minaj. They're all the same. They're all the same. Women who supposedly are overly provocative, overly sexual. That's their female empowerment. That's their female empowerment. But all they are just templates that can be transferred to any woman they pick. Madonna is no different. Or the latest iteration of Madonna was Lady Gaga, then Nicki Minaj, then Cardi B. They just passed the torch. These women did not come out of the woodwork paying their so-called dues. That's a story that they put out there in the press. Their agents and their PR people put that out there. Just so you would know that there are people behind the scenes in corporate boardrooms that are crafting their images, that are writing this stuff up. Miley Cyrus, in her sexuality, come out all of a sudden she's sexual and she's holding penises. It's no different than what Madonna did. It's no different than what Lady Gaga did. It's no different than what Nicki Minaj did. That's no different than what Cardi B is doing. They're all the same. It's the same archetype. But we fall for it. So you have these young girls coming out thinking, I can be just as famous as a Cardi B. No, unless the ruling elite decides to pick you and you decide to sell your soul, maybe then. It's smoke and mirrors. And we fall for it. The whole thing about WAP. She's just asserting her female independence. Wow, she's showing her ass and her tits. So she's so empowered. Since when did female empowerment equate to showing your ass and your tits? Because the school of thought that came from speaks of the divine feminine, feminine intuition, feminine wilds, where a courtesan or a woman could woo a nation by her femininity. Many women in history of antiquity have given rise to nations and falls to nations simply on their femininity, their feminine wiles, not being a boss bitch. Women have had a secret power, the power of a divine feminine to woo the world, to woo men. And what the society has done is to suppress that idea. Look and research history. I'm telling you the truth. Women have power through their femininity. To destroy nations, to give rise to nations. Without sleeping around, without being a boss bitch, without showing the ass and tits or getting body augmentation. You've been misled and lied to. Divine feminine is powerful. Female intuition and feminine wiles is real. Female seduction is real. It is the power of the yin principle, not the boss bitch principle. When I see things like Marvel does, Black Widow, and she's kicking the guy's ass with the karate moves, and this and that, and this and that, I'm like, women don't have the strength of men. Women can't do that. That's a lie. It's fooling young girls to think they can be on par with men. I'm a man, and there's certain men who've trained all their lives eating carnivorous red meat, lifting gigantic trees for breakfast. That's my exercise. And I wouldn't want to go toe to toe with them. And you're telling me some skinny 90-pound girl or whatever is going to kick their ass? Women have conquered men that strong through their feminine wiles. I want you all, if you get an opportunity, to watch the TV series called Star Trek Enterprise. There's a character called Hiroshi. She's a communications officer. And in the last series, they find a starship that's similar to the Enterprise. And Captain Archer, and this takes place in an alternate universe. Now, pay attention to what I'm saying. Wants to take over Starfleet by using this advanced Federation ship. He's going to take it back to Earth and make the president of the Federation bow to his whim. Now, on that ship, there's a power struggle. Everybody's trying to take out Archer. He gets one up on them. And at the very end of the show, we find that he's been poisoned. And who does it? His most loyal officer, Lieutenant, I'm not really sure what her title is anymore, Hiroshi, a beautiful Japanese woman, hid in the background, used her feminine wiles to get to where she was, to be Captain Archer's, I think, was she may have been she was his concubine for a while. And then all of a sudden, at the very end, she planned it beautifully. She let Archer take out all of his oppositions while demonstrating that she was loyal to him. And at the very end, poisoned him. And then when the Enterprise came to Earth and the president of the Federation says, "Where's Archer?" She says, "Archer is dead. You're speaking to Empress Hiroshi. Empress, surrender or I'll destroy you." This is an example of a woman who didn't karate chop her way to the head of the Federation. She laid low in the background, plotting, scheming, allowing Archer to do the heavy lifting, taking out his enemies. And when he had no more enemies, she took Archer out and became Empress. Do you understand the power of a divine female? Do you understand the power that women have? Not through karate chops and trying to demonstrate you're just as strong as a male. No, you've got something, in many cases, more powerful, but you're not going to use it because the ruling elite doesn't want you to know about it. The ruling elite wants to put out these films, Ghostbusters, Terminator, where they're showing you like just as strong as a male to deceive you and mislead you. Do you understand? Do you understand? You're speaking to Empress Hiroshi. She didn't have to beat up 6 men to get to where she were. She was smart enough to let Archer do the work. And a simple poison in his drink took him out so she could assume the power and position of Empress. Beautiful ending. Beautiful ending. It got me. I want you to think about what mainstream media is doing, how you're being misled. We've gone through a difficult year last year. And that's when the media propaganda hit its height, promoting Black Lives Matter, trying to vilify Trump, to steer you in a certain direction. Now the truth is starting to come out that Black Lives Matter is a facade. And that the media conspired to make Trump look bad. And that they pushed you into the Hegelian dialectic, the choice between bad and worse candidates, 2 bad candidates. You thought one candidate was better than the other. Hollywood putting out its TV stars, movie stars, music industry putting out its top pop stars to talk bad about Trump, to make you think Biden was the second coming. We've got to stop falling for this. We've got to see through it all. Let's stop supporting this machine. Stop supporting our own demise. You know what I mean? These individuals that you see in your movies and your music industry are chosen by the ruling elite. To get to the heights of where they are, they have paid a heavy price. They sold their souls. In Scientology, when you join it, one of the things is you sign a billion-year contract. Maybe such a contract exists in the film and TV industry and the music industry. Actually, that contract is not bad because it talks about a billion-year contract to help humanity. So that's not a bad contract, actually, because I don't mind spending 1 billion years to help humanity, you know. But what I do mind is signing a contract where I'm going to lie to the masses of people, where I'm going to promote sexism, racism, and materialism. Let me say it again, where I'm going to be asked to promote sexism, racism, and materialism and separation. I'm not going to do that. But you see, we've gone through an education system and a social engineering to be ego-focused, to only think about I, to be centered on self. So the offer that they make doesn't seem outlandish because we're already on that course anyway. I'm already selfish, right? If Cardi B's talking about she drugged men, admitting that she drugged men and robbed them, so then what is a contract to sell her soul to be a pop star? That's nothing for her. She'll do it. And then she'll get an opportunity to sit down with the president. In what world do we live in where a former prostitute who drugged men and robbed them can sit down and have a dialogue with the president about the direction of the world or the direction of a people? Does anyone not see how insane that is? How backwards that is? This bizarro world? That should not happen. But it does happen when you have a ruling elite that's bent on an agenda and trying to influence and manipulate and program you. But you can't see it though. You fall for it because all you care about is it's hip hop, it's pop culture, it's Nicki Minaj, or it's Cardi B. If Cardi B is sitting down there with the president talking, that's because she's an influencer. No, that's because that she's been crafted, selected by the ruling elite, and is given that opportunity. Why isn't the president sitting down with the representative of Black community who has a background in economics and finance and humanitarian issues? Why is he sitting down with a woman that prostituted herself, raped men, robbed them, admitted it, can't speak proper English, doesn't know anything about politics? Do you not see how insane that is? I want you to think about these things and just really question what you're seeing in mainstream media. And don't take it as face value. It's all designed. It's all constructed. It's all scripted. And I'm tired of us falling for that. I'm tired of the lies. As I said before in a previous broadcast, now we're seeing a proliferation of UFO videos in the mainstream media. Well, that's allowed to be seen. They're pushing that in front of you. Think about this. Why hasn't mainstream media done an investigation to Black Lives Matter? Everybody should be in an uproar about that. Why hasn't there been an independent investigation of 9/11? Because the mainstream media is financed and backed by the ruling elite. Why isn't Hillary Clinton under investigation and in jail? Why isn't the media pushing for that? Because they're all on the same team. Look at the photo of Obama, his wife, and how they're now taking pictures with former presidents. Because they're all on the same team. You would think that Obama would be against Bush or the Bush team or against Reagan's policies, but they're all on the same team. I'm not even getting to the fact that they're all related. Think critically. Stop emulating what you see in mainstream media. Go beyond your ego. Stop thinking it's all about you and how you want to make it big, how you want to get the bag, how you want to be popular in the limelight, and start thinking more about humanity and the direction that we're going in for our future generations. Man, that's a hard thing to ask, isn't it? I'm asking you to stop being selfish and to look at the bigger picture. Every time I see a young brother out there on the street selling his CD or his track, I just think another one has been misguided. But this is a part of left brain thinking that we have to deal and contend with. I could easily just look at him and say, oh, he's messed up, he's deluded, which is true. But I also have to understand that the ecosystem has forced him into a position to where he's trying to get out of poverty because he's part of an oppressed culture, an oppressed people. So the only way that he sees that he can get out of poverty and oppression is by what he sees on rap music, which is guys getting paid and getting bitches and being bosses. So he's thinking, well, I got a chance. I can be the next, Jay-Z. So I can't blame him too much. Because when you have a system like that of oppression, you push people into drug addiction. You push people into committing crimes. And then you want to blame the people, but not the system that oppressed them? Are you crazy? And this is what we're doing. We're blaming the individuals, and we're not blaming the system of manipulation. Of course, you're going to have people, a large segment of the young want to be pop stars, because that's what you're putting in front of their face. You're throwing money, you're throwing lavish lifestyle in front of their faces, but no spiritual principles. So they become materialistic, devoid of spiritual principles. They become egocentric, devoid of holistic thinking. Well, that's the plan. You don't want them to think about the collective goal of humanity. You want them thinking about the individual. That's easier for you to take over. You've conditioned the mind to such a degree that now you have black men or men themselves talking negative about other men. You would think they were feminist. We call them simps. But whatever you want to call them, they're anti-males. They've been indoctrinated into misandry. How could that be, though? If you're a male, how could you be someone who's against male? They don't even know what they're saying. We got to protect the black woman. Well, you do know that domestic violence is just as high among males as it is among women. You do know that black males are being shot down by the police. You do know that black males are being incarcerated on this planet. So why are you screaming, we got to protect the black woman, when you should be screaming, we need to protect black men? Because you've been programmed to regurgitate this information. And when you say we got to protect the black woman, well, who are you going to protect the black woman from? Because the threat ain't from black men. And then you have the black women who go around and indoctrinating feminism, hating black men, when they have not called to task the crimes that white men have committed against black women. They should be out there holding accountable white men for the raping of black women. For the creation of a patriarchy which is out to destroy their own men and them. But no, instead their anger is misdirected at black men. And white women are going through it too. Out there spewing hate for white men. Well, didn't the white man conquer this planet and give you the spoils of war? And you're complaining? Excuse me, didn't this white man take over every continent plunder, take the natural resources so that we can have a certain lifestyle, and you could have a certain lifestyle, and then put you on a pedestal as the epitome of beauty throughout the world, and you are complaining about something? And when this white man was drafting other white men into war and said, you didn't have to go, you don't have to go to war, you can stay home, you don't have to go and battle and die, and you are complaining against something? When the ship is sinking and this white man put into the law, the rule, women and children first, and you are complaining about something? I think you need to reevaluate your ideals here. Because as I see it, you're living a pretty comfortable life compared to women of third world countries. The way I see it, this country is rolling out the red carpet for you everywhere you go. Blonde-haired girl gets missing on TV. They call every military operation out to go and find her. Young black girl goes missing, no one cares. You're complaining about something? You cry sexual harassment, the world stops. People get fired, lose their jobs, lose their livelihood just on an accusation, not even proven to be guilty. So you can just say something and it's taken as truth, and people will go to jail, careers will be lost, and you're complaining about something? Black woman yells rape against a white man, she got to have not only film and video, but holographic images and everything. Got to have 16 witnesses who are actually there. Got to have a time travel machine so the judge can go back and see it actually live. But we don't see anything wrong with what's going on here. We're all specimens in a laboratory. We're mice, and they're playing with us. They are playing with us. We got to stop being the lab experiments. We got to start standing up and be gods. That's what we were meant to be. Stop emulating mainstream media. Stop being selfish and self-centered. You may think it's all cool to have what these people have or had, but it's not. It's not. I want to thank you all for tuning in today. If you get an opportunity, please donate to the channel. Hopefully YouTube will, put back my super chats. This is Qesankh Ma Keperu, son of Ma and Tootie. My aunt is the beautiful goddess Heteru. Until my next video, Amun Ra.